Welcome to Zandvoort in the Netherlands. It's the fourth race weekend of the 2019 FIA WTCR, and we return to Zandvoort for the third time in World Touring Car Racing history. Last season it was a horror story for the Hyundais, and this season it is a little bit more of a balanced deal for them, but it has been up and down for our new boys this year. Lincoln Co. very quick in qualifying yesterday. They had the balance of performance change, still went out and went 1-2 in yesterday's race, but after qualifying strongly today, again, they have hit trouble. We'll catch up with all that in a little moment. There is the North Sea on the right-hand side. There is the beach, and right underneath our helicopter is the Circuit Park Zandvoort, now owned by the Dutch royal family, Prince Bernhard von Oranje, who was one of the wildcard drivers here, and they have proudly announced just a week ago that Formula One racing returns to Zandvoort for the 2020 Grand Prix season. The first time since 1985 that there's been Grand Prix racing here. Has there ever been a longer gap in a country between national Formula One Grand Prix? I'm not sure that there has. Well, let's get to the job in hand. We've got races 2 and 3 of the weekend to get underway this afternoon, and on the DHL pole position for the first of those is the man who became our points leader yesterday, finally overhauling his teammate Nestor Girolami. Esteban Guerrieri came in today with a 1-point championship advantage. He starts on the DHL pole from 2 Volkswagen drivers. Volkswagen back in the mix. Benny Leusner and Johan Christoffersen, the new boys to the championship, line up second and third ahead of Nicky Katzberg, who took 2 poles a week ago in Slovakia. Mikel Ascona is in 5th position on the grid after losing his best time in Q3. Ivan Muller is promoted from 10th to 6th. Augusto Farfus moves down 1 to join Norbert Michelis on row 4, and Björk and Erlaché move down to row 5. However, Erlaché will now start on pole, should he survive race 2, for race 3. From here on down, the positions don't change. Girolami and Huff will start on row 6. Aurelian Panis, the best of the Cupras, behind Ascona on row 7 with Gabriele Tarquini. Jean-Carl Vernet, the best of the Audis, with Mehdi Banani alongside him. Very disappointed Andy Priaulx, podium yesterday, or qualified 3rd yesterday, qualified 17th today, ahead of Nils Lagerveld. Kevin Chacon in the Alpha, and Frederick Vervisch start on row 10 of the grid. This has not been a good track for the Audis after success last week in Slovakia. Attila Tashi and Daniel Hegloff start on row 11. Row 12, Thiago Montero and Marcin Kwa, who was one of our race winners, in fact the last race winner in Slovakia just 7 days ago. Local hero Tom Coronel starts 25th, and Gordon Shedden 26th for both our remaining races. Talking of local heroes, Alex Le Gui is down on the grid. No, it's not her, it is the interviewee to whom she should soon be speaking, whose father was just 17 years old and still racing karts last time there was a Grand Prix here.
Let's grab a quick word with Max Verstappen. Max, it's fantastic to have you back on the WTCR grid once again, and I know that you've been putting in some practice ahead of next year's Formula One. I just saw you having a chat to Nicky Katzberg. He's one of our 3 Dutchies. Yeah. Do you think he's got a good chance?
Well, he starts quite far up the road, so I think he has a good chance. He's a fast driver. I raced with him a lot online, so yeah, it's always good to say hi.
What's it like to be back on the WTCR grid?
Good. I mean, I like the series. It's very competitive and a lot of cool cars, so yeah, it's fun to see.
You were just saying a second ago that how close it is between the top drivers. It's less than a second between the top 24.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of experienced drivers in here as well, so I think that in general then also makes the championship a lot better.
And how important is it to you to be back here for F1 next year?
Yeah, it's good. You know, I think nobody thought about actually having the Grand Prix back, but I think everybody can be very proud, and of course to come back with a V8 car here as well to do a few demonstration laps and do some donuts as well is always a lot of fun.
Thank you, Max.
Always good to see Max Verstappen around and about. Wasn't born till 1997, so by the time he was born, his country had not had a Formula One Grand Prix in 12 years. It's taken his entire life for one to return. Lots of colour and ceremony for the Jumbo race days, and certainly with Max Verstappen being here, chatting to the crowd, doing bus tours, and particularly doing the demonstration laps in the Formula One cars, which are always highly flamboyant. It's a real big draw for the crowd. Jean Todt, the president of the FIA, here this weekend as well, promoting the road safety initiatives. So all sorts of stuff going on. The track has been busy, busy, busy. Richard Coleman sitting alongside me. Lots of different machinery on the track, lots of different rubber going down, but it is a pretty misty, moisty day. We've still got that wind coming off the North Sea. Wonder how much the track is really evolving.
Yeah, as you said, Martin, very, very close to the North Sea here, literally on the beach. And aside from the wind direction changing very quickly, we're in a bowl of sand dunes, and the way that the wind blows that sand across the circuit, it makes it very difficult to judge the circuit grip session to session. A lot of other circuits is a lot more predictable, whereas here we don't really have that luxury. But that's good news for us. We can get some very unpredictable racing this afternoon.
Well, after Q3, it was found that Ivan Muller, who set an astonishingly impressive pole position time, his car was over boosting, so he has lost his Q3 times, which drops him from pole position for the race 3 down to 5th, but it also promotes him from 10th place in race 2 up to 6th position, and that has moved Norbert Mikulits back down to 7th, down to 8th rather, Augusto Farfus down to 7th. So the 4 guys that were behind Muller originally on this grid are now, or in qualifying, are now actually all pushed down 1 spot, which is a sort of law of unintended consequences there. Muller gets a penalty, but as a result, so do the other 4 guys who did nothing wrong. So that leaves...
My understanding of that is that the car was compliant in the Q2. So yeah. But I must admit that the rules are open for interpretation there. It's quite a difficult one.
But it does mean that these guys lose a spot on the grid. Well, Augusto Farfus will start the 2nd race in Zandvoort in the Netherlands in not 6th but 7th position, and Ivan Muller, his car, the team caught out by changing his boost pressure didn't relate as it should do to the atmospheric pressure. That's the word I wanted, atmospheric pressure, which has changed overnight. And these are things that you have to track when you're trying to keep, you know, whether you're here or Indy, it's not an absolute boost, it's a boost relating to the conditions of the day. And so unfortunately his car overboosting a fraction. I have to say, it probably wasn't overboosting half a second to his benefit. He put in quite the most astonishing lap. He was absolutely stoked with it. So really disappointing for him to lose his position, and he won't start the final race from pole. Well, let's hear now from Alpha's Kevin Chacon.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the FIA WTCR presented by Oscaro. We are in Zandvoort and we are ready to go for race 2. Just follow us, follow Race Free in more than 1 hour. The action will be good. E adesso vorrei salutare tutti i telespettatori italiani di Eurosport Italia. Sono Kevin Cecconi in diretta da Zandvoort per la 2ª gara del WTCR. Corro con l'Alfa Romeo Giulietta di Romeo Ferraris, quindi pilota italiano su macchina italiana. Spero che tutti tifiate per noi. Seguiteci su Eurosport e fate il tifo per noi. Ciao.
Ciao Kevin, bye, bye. Kevin Chacon with a little word in Italian for the fans back home, and delighted as he and Martin Qua were with 4 podium finishes from the 2 cars in 3 races last weekend in Slovakia. Slightly different proposition here. Clearly the circuit doesn't, or the car doesn't respond quite as well to the circuit. You talked about the sand dunes, Richard, and there's a great indication of that. Not only are we literally on the beach, but often, as you say, when the wind blows, the beach is literally on the track as well, because it is nestled in these dunes on the North Sea.
Easy for you to say.
She shells on the seashore. So
it does give the teams quite a long job list at the evening, because aside from just things like air filters and things like that, there's a lot of things on the car that are quite open to ingress from dirt and grime that normally, you know, over the course of a race weekend wouldn't need to be serviced until the cars are back at the factory. But a circuit like here, there's a bigger job list on a Friday and Saturday night, just because it's just so sandy.
Not least your lunch, sand, literal sandwiches. Kevin Ascona, Race 1, 3rd place behind winner Ted Björk and 2nd place man Ivar Muller. And another good, strong qualifying run from PWR Racing's Cupra. Unfortunately, his teammate Daniel Hegloff didn't get a particularly good run. Starts 22nd for both races this afternoon. Car 22 is Fredrik Vervisch, and he starts 20th, a spot ahead, or a row ahead of Hegloff. Vervisch, our race 1 winner in slippery conditions last time out. Tom Coronel, I think like Fredrik Vervisch, would probably hope for something to change. Slippery conditions might not help, but they would at least offer him a little crumb. Tom Coronel starts 25th with Gordon Shedden alongside him.
And again, Martin, you know, Vervisch down in 20th, but the lead Audi is in 15th, so it's not too much of a disgrace for him. But poor old Tom Coronel, hometown hero, down on the back row of the grid. There's, of course, Mikael Ascona in the Cupra making the top 5 for this race. So, yeah, it's a difficult weekend for those guys again. We've seen the PWR team getting the best out of the Cupra pretty consistently over the start of this season so far.
Nicky Katsberg is the best of the Dutch today, the best of the Dutch yesterday, winning the Eurovision Song Contest. So obviously all the Dutch guys were up late celebrating and enjoying that. Or possibly somebody needs to tell them. I'm not sure. Racing drivers are among the biggest of the Eurovision fans. Obviously that's Honda PR man Jamie O'Leary, our big show tunes and Eurovision expert. He's the man to go to for the odds. He predicted very firmly, I think, that the Dutch were going to be right on the top of the pile. Whether he predicted that the Volkswagens were going to be going so well, I'm not sure. They changed the ECU after the first 2 race weekends of the season. The story is that Volkswagen used an ECU which will be mandatory from next year. And they thought, right, well, if we're going to have to race with it, let's race with it now and see how it goes. The answer is it doesn't. So at Slovakia last week, they effectively re-homologated the Golf TCR with the old ECU that they used last season to very good effect. And so because it was, quote, a new car, even though it wasn't, it was, quote, a new car, they were re-homologated, they went back up to maximum ballast, and now the BOP has changed and they are a much more competitive proposition, which for Volkswagen Motorsport and Sebastian Loeb Racing and all their drivers is good, but for the championship that's good as well, because you can't have one car plainly not being able to cope. That does not work in anybody's benefit, does it? It
certainly doesn't, and I think Leutner and Kristoffersson have a great chance of winning this race. I think their best chance is to make a move into turn 1 or 2. The other thing is that, you know, we said earlier during the qualifying session, Martin, that Esteban Gurrieri is our championship leader. He's fought incredibly hard with a car that's not got much pace to get him into the top 10, which is given in this reverse grid. But of course, he's fighting for a championship. He's got points to protect. He's got the long game to think about. Whereas Leutner and Kristoffersson have had a horrid start to the season. Yeah. They've got a handful of points, and these guys have really got to A, score big, and B, the championship is a distant dream for those guys. Yeah. They're not going to feature in the championship race this year. So those guys are after, you know, race-winning glory today, whereas Gurrieri's got to think about the long game, and that's going to be an interesting dynamic to look for on the opening lap. Well, the good thing with Gurrieri is that he does think about the points. I mean, the two of them, he and Nestor Girolami, have said it all year long. One day he'll win, one day I'll win. It's all about getting the points. It's all about working together to give us both the best chance. I mean, you know, for them, the dream is that they go to the final race weekend and they've both still got a chance. And to that end, yes, if Leutner or Kristoffersson and Katsberg and Ascona or anybody else comes knocking hard, then rather than end up in the barriers with a big fat 0, he's going to take whatever fat he can off the top of this race, and then whatever happens in race 3 is grist to the mill, because he will start in 10th place on the race 3 grid, and so again there's a chance of a decent points haul. Now that he's got the championship lead, that becomes doubly important compared to being sort of 10 or 12 or 7 or even 2 or 1 points behind your own teammate. Yeah, and obviously a championship campaign is a very long one, you know, running from April to December this year. But in terms of, there's lots of little inflection points along the way, and I really wonder if one of them is today and this morning, that Girolami and Gurrieri at the top of the standings, and Girolami didn't make that Q2 cutoff, and he is starting both races from 11th, where Gurrieri, same pace car, starts this race from from pole. And they're the kind of little points during the season where it becomes very, very different.
That's exactly right.
That's the thing to look out for again across this race weekend.
Cars heading off on the final formation lap before race 2 of the Netherlands. Of course, that is our 3rd race this weekend, which, as you pointed out, the difference between not making it in the top 10 break and being in 11th place was pretty tiny. In fact, the gap between Esteban Guerrieri and teammate Nesta Girolami was 4 thousandths of a second, and that's what separated Girolami from pole in this race. If he'd been 5 thousandths quicker on his lap, he wouldn't be 11th for both races. He'd have been on pole for this one and on 10th for the next one. And those tiny little breaks in the, in Fortune, or just, 4 thousandths. You couldn't get 2 more closely balanced laps. That's pretty tough to lose out, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. So confirmation of our grid then. And with Ivan Muller not starting 10th, but starting in 6th position, actually, he'll be 6th in this race, 5th in the final race. He's got still a good chance of lots of points. It might have been, perhaps, that might be a rule that needs looking at over the winter, I think, that 4 drivers lost out in the race 2 grid because Ivan had a car that wasn't compliant in qualifying.
On the right side of that white line, yeah? On the main straight. Yes, you can cross that white line in the race start. Okay.
So, little different dynamic here. Ivan Muller got fined €600 for returning to the pit lane after Q3 instead of going straight into Parc Fermé, which is in the paddock behind the pits. And so drivers are having to be often you have to remind drivers, as a team owner, Richie, you know that, because they've got the concentration of the goldfish. But you've got to remind them of things just so that they don't fall foul of any really silly penalties.
That's absolutely right. And, I also say to the guys often that the engineers are the driver's second brain as far as those things go. I've got to remind them all the time.
First brain in a lot of cases. Big crowd at these jumbo race days at Zandvoort in the Netherlands. 4th race weekend of the FIA WTCR. We are hot on the heels of Max Verstappen's Formula 1 demonstration, part of the huge group of races and other features that draw in a massive crowd here to this seaside circuit. When we talk about the seaside, it is literally right on the beach at Zandvoort on the North Sea coast. So the cars coming to the grid, race 2 of 3. Yesterday's first encounter was very much to the benefit of Lynk & Co with a 1-2 result. Ted Björk winning from Ivan Muller, and Michele Ascona taking 3rd place on the grid. Esteban Guerrieri, Benjamin Leuchter and Johan Kristoffersen are the top 3 on our race 2 grid, getting ready to go. Green flag waves. We are 5 seconds from the start of race 2 of the WTCR here in Zandvoort. On the right-hand side, Esteban Guerrieri, always a good starter in the Honda. Alongside him, Benny Leuchter, first front row starts for the Volkswagen driver in his WTCR career. Johan Kristoffersen from 3rd, tucks in behind. Nicky Katzberg, the Dutchman, has a little sniff down the inside, but Kristoffersen shuts the door very firmly. Outside, Michele Ascona gets nerfed by Ivan Muller. Ivan Muller's up to 5th position, Ascona down to 6th. Augusto Farfus looking to come around the outside of the Spaniard, does not get through. Then it's Norbert Mikulits, and alongside, side by side, Jan Erlache and Ted Björk, and that resolves itself in Björk's favour. He gets the inside line out of the tight left at Hugenholtz as they climb the hill. There is Erlache right beside, and Nesta Girolami waiting to try and get through. Good start for Girolami, with Rob Huff in his Volkswagen tucked in behind him. Girolami just out of the top 10 at the moment behind the 2 Lynk & Co cars. Guerrieri, Richard Coleman got the start he needed, didn't he?
Dream start for Guerrieri. He can now get on with building this race. Hopefully he's got a bit more pace than the Volkswagens. Long run pace on Friday looked pretty good for those guys, so he's now got a great chance of being able to win this. Who's that off?
That's
one of the
Tashi
Hondas.
off in the gravel, the KCMG Honda, and he was way down the order in 21st place. Ivan Muller was having a look underneath Nicky Katzberg for 5th position just a moment or two ago, and Tashi is firmly buried. That will require a safety car because they're going to have to drag him out, so that'll be another little cooling down period for Esteban Guerrieri. We can add up to 2. Ooh, and that was on the nose of Tom Coronel's car. No, was that Panis or Coronel? Coronel, I think, possibly. No, not red flag, sorry. Little red flash came in there. So safety car is out and ready to pick up the field. It's not a long lap around here, and that's in touring cars. It's a 1 minute 45 in a Formula One car. It'll be barely over 70 seconds, you would think, perhaps barely over 60 seconds. Safety car boards are out. Hey, you are on the telly. That's because we need that picture. Let's hear from Tom Coronel.
I had a soft touch with Tassi, but I never saw it. He braked on top of the hill, the car started to go sideways. I did not touch him on purpose or hard, but I could see he went a little sideways.
So that is a slight mea culpa there to race control. Let's have a little look here. There's Tashi. This is climbing up through the Hunsrück. No contact. Cold tyres, Tashi sideways. Do you know, I think he was gone anyway, wasn't he?
To be fair to Tom, I feared he was being a bit economical with the truth, but yeah, you're absolutely right. When we look at that in slow-mo, you can see that Tashi's already having a pretty big moment, and Tom just gives him that little helping hand that puts him past the point of no return. But yeah, that's all on Tashi's shoulders.
And the reason that Coronel made contact is that he's on the throttle going up the hill, and Tashi, as he slides, slows down and basically reverses into Coronel. So, yeah, I would not, hopefully, see a penalty going to Coronel for that one. Well, the field behind the safety car safely passed the scene of the incident, and Tashi's car, as you could see, was already being dragged out. Now, race distance was 12 laps. I'm guessing we will end up with a 14-lap encounter. Let's take a look again at the start. Esteban Guerrieri from pole position makes a good getaway. Ivan Muller does as well, the first of the blue Lynk & Co cars. You could see that the grey car of Ascona was moving over to driver's right to try and shut the door. Muller was having none of that. There was a little bump between them. Muller still there, Muller still there. Muller going for the exit curve. Let's ride on board with the Frenchman. Now, he's probably not feeling the love for anybody right now after losing what was a stunning pole position lap because of a technical boost anomaly that he couldn't control. So he gets in and doesn't particularly hug the curb in any way, shape or form in Tarzan. He's making sure that he has that position right behind Augusto Farfus. This is with Gabriele Tarquini, with Norbert Mikulicz rather. Farfus trying to get by Ascona as well. So safety car leads them round for another one. So this is now on to lap 3 of what will be 14. Race distance counter hasn't changed, but will add, this is our second lap behind the safety car, so it will add 2 laps. Focus now for the engineer chatting to Esteban is to just make sure he is ready to restart. So tyre temperature into corner 1, brake temperature into corner 1.
Yeah, absolutely, and also just having a think about when he's going to go, when he's going to back the field up.
Let me know when it's going to be back. Stay in this one, okay? Thank you. Okay, copy that. Really suggesting that we can build a little boostage to brake on the restart, if that makes sense. Okay. Pushing on the brake for what we might be missing. Everyone, when you drive against the brake, you already build up boost, and when you release the brake and go full throttle, you accelerate much better like you just push the throttle, you know what I mean?
Little radio conversation between Esteban Guerrieri and his engineer. He's saying, right, should I have throttle to build the boost and then use the brakes? In no, because you're going to overboost it, just use the throttle to build the boost. So what he's hoping is that Esteban will have heated the tyres, make sure he's got some temperature in the brakes, because when you get down to Tarzan, you do not want to be out braking yourself. Safety car will come in this lap. So the lights go off at the end of timing sector 2. And as he heads down into the S's, they do exactly that. Our safety car driver will then scramble towards the pit lane, and Esteban will maintain the designated pace, and then backing the field up will try and give himself a good run onto the front straight, because a little bit like Formula One, he's given away a big toe.
On the 4 cars, top 4, I have the worst start, Copy that, be ready, safety car in this lap.
Green flag, and here we go racing. Esteban Guerrieri, the race leader, the points leader, has made a good getaway from Benjamin Leuchter and Johan Kristoffersen. Nicky Katzberg wasn't quite close enough to try anything on the Golfs in the toe, but safe from Ivan Muller behind. His teammate last year, of course, at YMR, or a couple of years ago, in the Volvo team rather. And in 6th position, Mikel Ascona. There you can see 25, that is Mehdi Banani ahead of Niels Langerveld. They are just outside the points. The turquoise-nosed Audi of Jean-Carl Vernet is the only Audi in the points at the moment, and that's just ahead of the battle we were looking at. But Richie Coleman, Guerrieri making exactly the start he needed to. They didn't get a chance to get close to him. Now he can use this lap to get his tyres back where he needs them, and then hopefully fend them off down the straight next time.
Yeah, they're always the worry points, and as we discussed in the build-up to the start of the race, this is the championship leader with 2 guys behind them that have got barely a handful of points from all the opening races. So they're very, very hungry to get a win. So yeah, it'd be interesting. The main thing that these Volkswagens got to do is stay within the slipstream of that Honda. The moment they've broken the slipstream, that you know, you're basically giving Esteban that one hand on the trophy.
Yeah, and the other thing that Guerrieri needs is for Katzberg to catch up Kristoffersen and start piling pressure on from behind, and that's actually what's happening. There's more of a gap from Katzberg back to Muller now, and less forward to Kristoffersen, looking back from the leader. Sector 2 is very good for the Honda compared to the way the Golf is. Leuchter flashing the headlights more in hope than anticipation of distracting our race leader, I think. But he's got his headlight on the flash apart. The big moment for Muller, huge slide for Muller. A 10-time IX Racing champion holds on to it. And the only law in a front-wheel drive car in a situation like that is just keep your right foot buried and allow the car to drive its way through. But Muller drops down to 8th position. So Farfus, Mikulits and Ascona, or Farfus and Mikulits, who lost places to him at the start, and Ascona, who got pushed out on the first corner, get their places back. That was a big old moment. You don't want to have an accident out that final corner.
You certainly don't, and yeah, Ivan's day going from bad to worse, really, but he looked like he lost it quite early on in the corner, and that's not normally somewhere where we see cars leave the road.
Still cold rear tyres, or did he just get on the white line? Yeah, he was just half a tyre's width on the left, wasn't he? Yeah.
Sucked off that curb, but yeah, Ivan did very well to gather that up and lose only as few places as he did. But yeah, that's that's the 25 years of ice racing that he's got under his belt that's enabled him to do that one. But yeah, very odd. Just that slight mistake there.
Yeah, all that huge touring car experience comes into effect, you know, just occasionally.
Now, of course, the Volkswagen's quite light here, Martin, with the BOP, and that will really help them with the tyre wear that takes place during the race. And this circuit is relatively high tyre wear, not so much because of the abrasiveness of the tarmac, but if you look, even those high-speed sections, it's not really in a straight line. The tyre is always doing something, and in a front-wheel drive car, you're asking those tyres to brake, turn, steer, power, and we have pretty high degradation here, and that's a theme to look out for, because the Volkswagens are very light, and if they can stay with Esteban for the last sort of 4 or 5 laps, they may well be well placed to make their move.
And perhaps Benny Leuchter might be the first to win a race for Volkswagen. He sandbagged Andy, well, didn't sandbag, he whacked Andy Priaulx, jumped him right on the final lap of the race in race 1. Yesterday, halfway around the circuit through the Hunsrück, he just got a run on him, and Priaulx had nowhere to hide in the bigger, heavier Lincoln Co. And so Leuchter may be able to try and put in a similar move on Esteban Guerrieri. The Honda maybe not quite in the same position as the Lincoln Co. side racing cars are, but all the same, there is the possibility Nesta Girolami up to 10th place.
So, what we do? Keep going, 47.0 is the fastest lap, 47.0.
And there is a view of Nesta Girolami from right behind Ivan Muller. Ivan down to 9th. He's been passed by Jan Erlache, who's got the big yellow stripe up the centre of the bonnet. He and Andy Prio in that particular two-car pair of the team. They have strictly got slightly different team names because you're only allowed to enter a two-car team. So Sign Racing entering 4 cars but under slightly different racing banners. So at the moment, the best of the Lynk & Co cars is Jan Erlache in 8th, Ivan Muller in 9th, Ted Björk is in 12th, our race 1 winner, and Andy Prio in 18th position after his tough qualifying. Andy Prio qualified 17th, he's running 18th. Daniel Hegloff in 19th place from 22nd on the grid, so they've sort of met in the middle. Ivan Muller, well, he was due to start 10th, started 6th, ahead of Nesta Girolami, who started 11th. Nesta up 1 spot. Ivan almost back down to where he started in 9th position. As the cars come across the line, look at the bar on the left-hand side. The little green markers are the sectors where the cars have gone green, and the laps where the cars have gone green. If it's purple, then that is an outright fastest lap of the race, which last time round, or the lap before, was set by Benjamin Leuchter in 2nd place. So the Golf 147.0, fastest that Esteban Guerrieri has produced is a 147.1. The Golf has a little in hand.
But one interesting theme is that the Honda cars seem to be consistently quicker through the speed traps, sort of 2 to 3 kilometers an hour quicker on the end of the straights, and that'll help him trying to defend that lead into the braking zone of Tarzan turn 1.
Yeah, I think if Leuchter's going to get by, turn 1 is probably not his opportunity. We heard even yesterday that both of the Munich Motorsport Hondas had trimmed out their rear wing to full Thruxton spec, absolutely flat. In fact, you can see on the Golf as well, you can barely even see the wing from head on. I think he's running negative wing as well. I think it's lower at the back than it is at the front in Benny Leuchter's car and Johan Christoffersen's. And you can see that Guerrieri has gone very much the same way. What you don't want here is drag. These cars are strong on mechanical grip compared to the aero element, and so you want to lose as much drag as you can for the higher speed sections. Actually, it's quite a high average speed lap as well. There's some long, fast corners, some flowing sections, as well as that big front straight. Dominic Greiner and the boys on the Munich Motorsport pit wall. Munich Motorsport still leading the team's contest, and Guerrieri, the way he comes off the final corner, Arie Luyendyk, and canters away up the straight, means that Leuchter is going to have a plan B and use that first.
And a bit of a gap down to the Hyundai of Farfus.
Yeah, Farfus in 6th, Mikulich in 7th, with Jan Erlache behind. And then Ivan Muller, Nesta Girolami, Gabriele Tarquini in 13th place. So 3 in the top 7. Tarquini scoring 0 points here last year and at the Nordschleife. It looks like he's on for another 0 point weekend. Riding on board with the Alfa Romeo. The Alfa's struggling here compared to last week. Kevin Chicon with 2 podiums. Martin Quire with 2 podiums, one of which was a win. Ma is 25th, the last running car. Chicon is 21st. And Fredrik Vervisch, who we ride on board with, our race 1 winner in Slovakia, is in 20th place. Okay, well, there's no answer to that. That was just make a note before I forget. I'm getting a lot of understeer. You still see him turning tightly, trying to get underneath Daniel Hegloff in the second of the PWR Racing Cupras, though. Seems to be an element. I'm going to have to watch Verne a little more closely, but certainly last weekend, Fredrik Vervisch could turn inside most things in the Audi. So one thing it doesn't lack is a sharp front end. Eddie Bernani just ahead of that little group. Bernani in 16th, the final car that might move up into the points, perhaps. Jean-Carl Verne is in 15th as the leader comes across the line. Guerrieri, Leuchter, Christoffersen, that's your top 3, looking back from the leader to Benny Leuchter.
Leuchter took 10th and a half out of Esteban that time around, he's definitely still with him, and as the tyre wear increases into the final 5 laps of this race, he's got to be starting to think about he could be in with a shout here.
Yeah. The problem is, where is he taking it out of him? If he's taking it out of him in sector 1, that's possibly not going to help. If he's taking it out of him in sector 3 and closing right up onto the straights, then that might help. This is where he passed Andy Prio in race 1. It was all done by the time they got to the top of the hill at Sky Flag, and that might be an opportunity there. But at the moment, it is Esteban Guerrieri doing everything he needs. And again, we talked about this before the start of the race when the cars were in the grid. If the Golf comes steaming up the inside, second place is better than nothing. Second place, third place, fourth place, any points now for the points leader who's in front in this race are better than a null point. And Guerrieri will definitely have that in mind. It won't be his overriding concern, but he will have that in mind if they come calling, particularly given that his teammate and closest rival is still in 10th position. Well, the answer to sector 1 is that Esteban Guerrieri had 1300s on Benny Leutner in sector 1. He had 1/10 on Benny Leutner in sector 2. Fredrik Vervisch and Kevin Chacon. Whoa! Vervisch having an Ivan Muller moment there. And in the final corner, I don't think he's under any misapprehension about what might go wrong if he didn't have a bit of a breathe off the throttle and save it. Or maybe kept his foot in, but not quite so aggressively. Ahead of the 2 Lincoln Co cars, Norbert Michelisz in 7th place. They're now quite some way behind Augusto Farfus, the best of the Hyundais behind Nicky Katzberg. So Farfus in 6th, Michelisz in 7th, and the gap between them is 2 seconds and growing. So Michelisz clearly feeling the attack from Jan Ehrlacher. And again, talking about drivers that don't want to risk too much, Richard, there's Ehrlacher. He'll now start on pole for race 3, should he survive, which he should. So he can't really be having any mad lunges at Norby for 7th position as opposed to 8th, because he's got a win to think about.
Absolutely, and I think Esteban probably has got a little bit more pace than he's perhaps let on earlier on in this race. He's just gapped Leutner a little bit more that time around, so maybe that's a sign that he has got a bit more in the tank.
Yeah, 4/10 first to second. Honda, Esteban Guerrieri leading from the Volkswagen of Benjamin Leuchter. Johan Kristoffersen in 3rd. Leuchter using a lot of curb in the S's. That's not going to help his exit speed either. They come behind the pits to the penultimate right-hander. This is where the old track came in over the driver's left-hand shoulder into what is now the final corner. Arie Luyendyk Bocht, named after the Dutch winner of the Indy 500. And down the straight, Guerrieri and the 2 Volkswagen security guards right with him. Katzberg not quite close enough really to offer them a challenge in the middle of the race, but he looks like he's closing up and taking Mikel Ascona with him. Farfus in no man's land, and then Michelisz, Ehrlacher, Muller, Girolami, Huff, Björk. They're all sort of jammed together in that queue. Ascona's coming with us as we ride with Katzberg. This is going to be a 5-car train, isn't it? This is lap 11 of 14, so 3 to go after this. Definitely not time for the Volkswagens to be giving up. I wonder what Katzberg's got late on in the race. Katzberg with 2 pole positions a week ago in Slovakia, didn't win either race 1 or race 3. So it was a sort of a reasonable point score, but not a massive point score. Doing a solid job here. Nicky Katzberg came into the race weekend up to 11th place. But Mikel Ascona in the grey car was 5th, finished in 3rd place in race 1. And Richard, this is the real cat and mouse now. Leutner's got to try and figure out what Esteban's not showing him. So this is really where experience and skill comes in, trying to read what the car ahead isn't doing so that you can try and spot the weakness.
And the cars are lapping like 1.2 seconds a lap quicker than they have done previously in the race, because the tyre wear is now really set in, and these cars will be quite difficult to drive, particularly getting the front end turned in. So it remains to be seen, how much Esteban saved of his tyres and how much pace he's ultimately got. Is he just doing enough, or is he genuinely struggling for pace?
12th time into Tarzan. This long banked right-hander at the end of the front straight. Feeds out and into the up the hill right-hander at Gerlach, and then dropping down into the near hairpin left at Hugenholz, which when you look at it you think, yeah, that's got to be an overtaking opportunity, but it is so tight you just can't get in there unless somebody makes a big mistake and drifts out wide. Jan Elische still chasing Norbert Mikulits. This is the cue for 7th on back. And looking back now at Nestor Girolami from Ivan Muller. Girolami was the championship leader coming in here yesterday. And then his teammate Esteban Guerrieri overhauled him in the points with a better race 1 result. Guerrieri, the winner of the opening race in Marrakesh, has not won since. He was 3rd in race 1 in Hungary, took 2nd in race 2 in Slovakia. And that was in fact the 3rd double podium for the team, but only the first 1-2. They had a couple of 1-3s in each of the first 2 races. Marrakesh and Hungary, they won race 1. Each driver won 1 race and finished 3rd in 1 race. Whoa! Girolami in very deep behind Ivan Muller.
The flying are worse and worse. Almost crashing to be honest. Okay, I guess you mean the knockoff. Yeah, what else? We talk about this in 4 race, so I'm sorry away of Jan because I don't want to. Okay, copy.
So he's talking about what's called knockoff. He's complaining about the brakes, but what the knockoff is that when the car rattles over bumps and curbs, the disc is floating, and the disc just walks the pads back and pushes the pistons within the caliper. So when the driver comes to the next corner, he goes to hit the brakes, and there's nothing there for the first 30-40% of the travel, and then the brakes come back. And that's basically the disc waggling on its float and then pushing the brakes back, and yeah, just doesn't give the driver any confidence, and means that the brakes are very, very inconsistent. So Ivan having a bit of a moan about that, and explains why we saw Girolami close up so quickly on the brakes into the S's last time around.
And what it does, it takes the sensitivity away, because the braking and the throttle, it's all about real finite sensitivity. And you go on the brake, there's nothing to think, oh, it's all there, and so then it becomes just a button with no finesse in it at all, and so you have really grabby brakes that lock up hard. Oh, change there as Katzberg under pressure from Ascona.
Only half a second from behind, so please, if you can push. I feel like I have no power.
Yeah. It's like race 1. Ivan Muller in 2nd place, who was under attack from Mikel Ascona, getting on the radio and saying, you could ask Ted to push a little. Ted was pushing, and I think Katzberg's in the same position. You see, he's been caught by Ascona. He hasn't been able really to get on the tail of Christophersen Golf in 3rd, but what's noticeable is how much Farfus has caught up, and he's the sister car to the 88, the 8 car, and he has caught Ascona and Katzberg is definitely losing ground now to the Golfs in front, and Ascona is rubbing in hands with glee. He can sense 4th position might be on the cards here on the final lap. Last time round then, this Zandvoort circuit for Esteban Guerrieri, Benjamin Leuchter and Johan Christophersen, the top 3, and then the battle for 4th, Nicky Katzberg looking back to Mikel Ascona and Augusto Farfus. So far, Leuchter has not been able to undo Guerrieri's defences. This is where he picked off Prio in race 1. It was not for the lead, it wasn't in a Honda, and he's not got the same run going on Guerrieri. Whatever else Guerrieri's got, he's got a very good defensive line, a very good racing line here. He's basically ignored the fact that Leuchter is there for 13 laps so far, and is just driving his own race as if there is nobody around him. And that's the only way really to deal with it, unless the car behind is much quicker and is always alongside you.
And this would be a very, very important win for Guerrieri. It's a weekend on which the Honda is known to struggle with where the BOP is from recent events, and therefore, you know, for him to get a big points haul when he knows he's not that quick makes a massive difference to his championship campaign.
Yeah. Really important for Nesta Girolami to move up as much as he could. He's got into 10th position, so it's not a 0, it's not down in the teens, but unless Leutner's got some turbo boost button that nobody's discovered yet, he is not going to catch Guerrieri here. Out of the final corner, it's a drag race, and it's not a very long one to the line either. This is no Monza, it's not a mile away. That's only the start line in Monza. The finish line is almost as close to the Parabolica as this is to Arilandi box. It is checkered flag out, and victory in the Netherlands for Esteban Guerrieri. Benny Leutner and Johan Christophersen score the first podiums of the season for themselves and their cars in their particular side of the Sebastian Loeb Racing Garage. So smiles all round on the SLR pit wall. Nicky Katzberg 4th, the best Hyundai result so far here in 2 years in Zandvoort, and Mikel Ascona and Augusto Farfus round out the top half dozen. When you can win, win, and Esteban Guerrieri has done exactly that. 25 points to the good. That is a big boost to his championship chances. Esteban Guerrieri records his 2nd win of the season. 11th race of the 2019 FIA WTCR, and that is now the 5th win for Munich Motorsport. The Honda drivers and the team, particularly that Honda team, are doing a superb job. They have won 5 out of the 11 races. 3 for Nesta Girolami, and 2 now for Esteban Guerrieri. So that's his 4th trip to the podium. Nesta's made 4 as well. And Guerrieri will be a happy boy.
Yes, baby. Yes, 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 yes. Fuck you. Fuck yeah. Thank God. Thank you, guys. Fuck yes. Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay, very happy. Just yes, apologies for that. It's obviously the effing and jeffing day here in Zandvoort. Yeah. If you didn't catch Yann Lechet's post Q3 interview earlier, I'm sure it's all over social media by now. It's just a little bit like a scene out of the Blues Brothers. However, you can understand the delight for Esteban Guerrieri. Everybody else heading into the paddock, top 3, will head back round to the pit lane to Parc Fermé. And our interviewer, Alex Legui. Well, for Benjamin Leutner, for Johan Christophersen, finally, today is the day where they start to go, okay, yeah, I can do this. I knew I could, but I started to wonder if I'd ever be able to show my pace. Finally, the Golfs have got the pace, and both guys drove really good, experienced, competent races, exactly as you'd expect.
Yeah, and that result will mean a lot for those guys. I mean, those guys have been really, really struggling in the opening rounds of this this championship season, and for those boys to have a double podium and maiden podiums for Christophersen and Leutner, that's going to mean a great deal to them. I think Esteban was particularly emotive on the radio after this race, because he knows that this is kind of what's called an ugly win. You know, yeah. It's not a race that he's kind of destined to achieve. It's one that you've ground out, and you've not necessarily got the quickest car to do so. With him starting 10th in the next race, he's just got to try and go forward, score a few points, and he's had an excellent weekend on a weekend where the car probably wasn't meant to.
Absolutely, take it. You know, it's like I always say, it's like playing Wales at rugby. Doesn't mean it doesn't matter how ugly the win is. A win is a win. The points are still the same. And again, yeah, you know, not the most beautiful. And this dates back to Marrakesh when we first met Yann Lechet, where he got 10th place and therefore the race to pole. And he said, yeah, but it's not really a pole. I wasn't the fastest guy. And there is a degree of that. He didn't get any points for the pole, but he got 25 points for the win, and those 25 points are very, very important. And for the Golf drivers, You couldn't find two guys less suited to sharing a GT car, could you? That is properly the little and large of it. Benny Leuchter and Johan Kristoffersen. There's Rog, as ever, Richard Rogers, nailing cats to the ceiling, herding jelly. And Benny Leuchter, he's clearly very, very thrilled with that, because he's going around congratulating everybody so busily he's forgotten that actually you need to remove your helmet to talk to Alex on the telly. But yeah, finally, Volkswagen Motorsport and Sebastian Loeb Racing have broken their podium duck. And Johan Kristoffersen, the double World Rallycross champion, finished in third. Let's hear, though, from our race winner.
Extending his lead in the championship standings, Esteban Guerrieri, you were great off the line, but my goodness me, Benny did not make that race easy for you.
No, definitely, it was a tough one. We managed to get P10 this morning, and I again say that I feel sorry for Nestor because it's just luck. I'm here because of universe or whatever, and Nestor was in 11th, so first to remind this, and this is for the team. Of course, we are a very nice group, a great bunch of guys here, and I'm thankful to all of them. We improved from yesterday. We made this little improvement that we needed to be here now, standing in the P1. So yeah, very happy for just how things go sometimes. You know, it has to go in your side to score good points, and we have it today. So happy, good job for the Volkswagen guys. I think the second guy, Leuchter, has some problem with the lights because he was flashing all the time. I don't think it was a very gentleman race there for him, but anyway, it was a very good one. We just kept pressure in there. The car was good until the end. The last lap I had a bit of problem with the rear, but overall very happy. So thank you, everybody. Gracias a todos en Latinoamérica. Vamos, carajo.
Great result, well done.
Second genuine laugh-out-loud interview today, and that didn't involve effing and jeffing. I think the second guy had a problem with his lights. He kept flashing them. That's just... could well be a short, who knows? Little loose connection. Benny Leuchter in second place, Johan Kristoffersen in third, but a very happy winner, Esteban Guerrieri. And clearly, you saw the helmet cam on his cap, so there'll be some social media after the race. Well, let's take a look at the results then. Esteban Guerrieri, second race win of the season. Benny Leuchter, Johan Kristoffersen, the first podiums for SLR Volkswagen. Nicky Katzberg finished in fourth ahead of Michael Ascona, yet again strong in the points. And Augusto Farfusson, sixth ahead of teammate Norbert Michaelis. Jan-Eile Scheer-Valmuller clinging on to the top 10 ahead of Nestor Girolami. Rob Huff, 11th. Race 1 winner Ted Björk in 12th, more points for him. Tarquini finally scores points in Zandvoort ahead of Panis and Verne, but out of the points and out of the luck at the moment. Bernardi Langeveld, the Dutchman, Prio, Hegloff, Chekon, Fredrik Vervish, Shedden, Montero, Coronel, Marcin Kvar, and our non-finisher Attila Tashi. Well, Nicky Katzberg for the home side, finishing in fourth position, but Niels Langeveld in 17th and Tom Coronel 24th. Won't be particularly looking forward to the final race with any great degree of glee, because there's not an awful lot that's likely to change. They'll start in the same positions with the same number of cars in front of them. That makes life very tricky. Esteban Guerrieri now with a 20-point lead, came in here 3 behind his teammate Nestor Girolami. Ted Björk in third ahead of Norbert Michaelis, and Michael Ascona still in 10th place, just 4 points behind Norby, who he outscored again. Tarquini down to 6th ahead of Muller, Verne, Vervish and Katzberg, now up into the top 10. Before they went to Slovakia, I think he was 17th in the championship. Mar 11th ahead of Eileshe Farfus, Huff, Chacon and Kristoffersen and Leutner scoring hard here. They and Bernani were in single digits going into Slovakia with 7, 8 and 9 points apiece. All the Volkswagen drivers have added to their tally, and in fact the one who scored strongest this weekend, Rob Huff, has not added quite as many as his younger teammates, but Huff was in 11th position. All-in-all leading the team's championship, still from Cyan Racing Link & Co. after their 1-2 result yesterday. They closed, but again with Ivan Muller only in 9th and Ted in 12th, they were outscored pretty comprehensively by the other drivers. Race 2 highlights from Zandvoort in the Netherlands. And the field getting away on a dull, overcast day with the Honda of Esteban Guerrieri at the front of the field. Great start from poleman Esteban Guerrieri to lead Benjamin Leuschner and Johan Kristoffersen away at the start of race 2 at Zandvoort in the FIA WTCR. And the beginning of the day, seeing Attila Tashi losing control on lap 1 on cold tyres, causing a brief safety car. 2 laps later, they were back to green flag racing. Local hero Tom Coronel right at the tail of the field. Teammate Nicky Katzberg in 4th. Huge save for Ivan Muller. He dropped down to the tail of the top 10 as Guerrieri held on in front of the increasingly agitated Volkswagen Golfs. Katzberg, Ascona and Augusto Farfus closing as Fredrik Vervisch had a near copybook cutter replacement of Ivan Muller's incident. He held on to his place, but he was out of the points. The team held their breath. Esteban Guerrieri continued to lead the race under increasing pressure from the resurgent Golfs. But it was the Honda driver who would come out on top 14 laps of the Zandvoort circuit, and Benny Leuschner didn't get one passing manoeuvre even to get alongside. Guerrieri claiming 25 vital points and moving into a strong championship lead with 1 race remaining in Zandvoort. The Argentine drivers for Munich Motorsport still 1-2.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podium for race 2 of this weekend's FIA World Touring Car Cup by Oscaro here at Circuit Zandvoort. Are you ready? Let's welcome onto the podium in 3rd position from SLR Volkswagen, it's Johan Kristoffersen. Also from SLR Volkswagen in 2nd position, it's Benny Leuchter. And your winner from allinkle.com Munich Motorsport, it's Esteban Guerrieri. And representing allinkle.com Munich Motorsport is Dave Scott. And now the national anthem for both Esteban Guerrieri and allinkle.com Munich Motorsport. The Chief Executive Officer of Circuit Zandvoort, Robert van Overdijk, will present our 3rd position trophy to SLR Volkswagen's Johan Kristoffersen. Jean Bessière, the marketing manager of Oscaro, will present our 2nd position trophy to SLR Volkswagen, Benny Leuchter. the Marketing Director of Central Europe of TAG Heuer, Kerstin Eichhorn, will present the winning trophy to allinkl.com Munich Motorsports, Esteban Guerrieri. The owner of Circuit Zandvoort, Bernhard van Oranje, will present the winning team trophy to allinkl.com Munich Motorsports, Dave Scott. Please come together, gents, for your official photographs.
Bernhard van Oranje, the owner of Circuit Park Zandvoort, otherwise known as Prince Bernhard of the Dutch royal family, presenting the final trophy to Dave Scott, Esteban's engineer. Nice work by the team and driver here.
Grab them bubbles. Go, go, go.
So fantastic effort by Esteban Guerrieri and Munich Motorsport. Esteban and teammate Nestor Girolami leading the drivers' standings, and Munich Motorsport still leading the team standings. One race to go, and whatever else happens now, it's still been a good race weekend for them and for Volkswagen Motorsport, with a 2-3 on the podium here in Zandvoort. So confirmation then of those teams' standings, and it is still a 64-point advantage for Munich Motorsport. They did outscore Cyan Racing, Lincoln Co's Ted Björk and Ivan Muller, and so they have extended their championship advantage, despite this being a weekend where the Lincoln Co cars were actually very quick indeed. And once you've got that head start, it's still a long season, but every day it gets a little shorter and the gap needs to come down commensurately. So race 2 done, race 3 still to come here, and that will be on air at 14:20 Greenwich Mean Time, and that is 16:20 local time. Esteban Guerrieri will start in 10th position, and the pole will be going to Jan Erlaché. Will Lincoln Co get the win? Find out then.
Hello, this is Jack Bernicle.